the unique feature of the U.S. presidential election is the fact that we don't use the popular vote alone to elect a president. And I'm going to give you the background here quickly, and then I'm going to show you a little video clip that explains the Electoral College in a little more detail than I'm going to go into here. And then I'm going to review two past elections to show you how this works. One, the 2012 election, in which Barack Obama was reelected, and then the controversial election of 2000. I'm going to show you how the Electoral College determined the president there, and how third-party candidates can even have an impact on an election, even though they don't win any electoral votes on their own right. But the Electoral College really is a system that goes back to a time where communication was difficult. And so tallying all these votes across the country back when we first set it up was a difficult proposition. And so instead of just counting popular votes, we decided to have electors from each state that would go to Washington, meet, and elect the president officially. And so basically, the first question you have to ask is, how are the electoral votes divided among the states, and what's the factor? And the factor that determines how many electoral votes each state has is population. And there's a very simple formula to come up with this number, and it's simply the representation in Congress that each state possesses. And so we take the number of members of the House of Representatives from a state plus the number of senators from that state. So basically the number of seats in the House plus 2. So Pennsylvania, for example, has 18 members of the House of Representatives. You add together the 2 senators, and Pennsylvania has 20 electoral votes. And with the exception of Nebraska and New Jersey, states award their electoral votes based off the popular vote. So in other words, whoever wins the most votes in that state gets all of the state's electoral votes, regardless of how close the actual election is in that state. But there is no equal division of the electoral votes. It is completely based upon winner take all, like I said, except for Nebraska and New Jersey. So I'm going to show you a little video clip, and then I'm going to walk through a couple elections to show you how the Electoral College works in practice.
Election day, when Americans everywhere cast their ballot for the next president of the United States. Except, not really. Americans don't directly vote for president. So what's happening on election day then? It's a bit complicated because of something called the Electoral College. To keep things simple for now, think of the Electoral College as the collection of 538 votes that determine who the president of the United States will be. Why 538? Because that's the number of senators, 100, plus the number of representatives, 438 in Congress. Why are there 438 representatives in Congress? Stop asking so many questions right now, we're trying to keep this simple. These 538 votes in the Electoral College aren't given to the citizens directly, but are instead divided among the states. So how does the Electoral College give out the votes? Each state, no matter how populous or not, gets 3 votes to start. The remaining votes are given out roughly in proportion to the population of the states. The more people the state has, the more votes it gets. Here's a map of the United States showing the voting power each state has by making one hexagon equal to one Electoral College vote for president. Because Electoral College votes mostly, though not completely, scale with population, it's also a map of where people live with a bonus given to the smaller states to make them a bit bigger than they would otherwise be. In early November, when citizens go to the polls, they aren't voting for president directly, but they're really telling their state how they want it to use its electoral votes. 48 of the 50 states give all their Electoral College votes to the candidate who wins a majority in their state. Take Florida, for example, which has 29 Electoral College votes. If a candidate wins a majority, no matter how small that majority, he gets all the votes. So the path to the White House is clear. Win enough majorities in enough states to get more than half of the Electoral College votes, and you get to sit at the big desk. That wasn't so complicated, you say?
Now that you have a little bit of a better understanding of the Electoral College, let's take a look at the 2012 presidential election contested between the Democrat, the incumbent president Barack Obama, and Republican Mitt Romney. And you can see the map, and the blue represents the Democrat, Obama in this case, and the red represents Romney. And you can see that Romney did win a fair share of states, but it's not about the number of states you win. It's about which states you win. For example, Pennsylvania. You can see that Obama won with 52% of the vote, and Pennsylvania has 20 electoral votes. And you move to what seems like a bigger state like Montana, and Romney won it handily with 55% of the vote. But Montana's only worth 3 electoral votes because they only have 1 representative plus their 2 senators. You have a state like Texas, which is fairly big, and Romney won that handily and won all 38, but it's kind of offset by Obama winning California, which has the most electoral votes with the highest population in the United States, and 55 electoral votes. And so it's about what states you win, not how many you win. If you look at the popular vote in general, Obama had 62,611,000 popular votes, whereas Romney had a little bit over 59 million. And so you had a clear-cut winner in this election, with Obama having 332 electoral votes and Romney 206. Okay, and so this is how it's done. Now, in most elections, you do have the winner of the popular vote will also win the presidency. But we had one election in my lifetime in which the winner of the popular vote did not win the election. And this is where the Electoral College comes into play, and also third-party candidates. And that was in 2000. Now here we have the results of the election of 2000, in which we had Bill Clinton had just finished his second term, and so it was another wide open race similar to 2008. George Bush was running as the Republican candidate, and Al Gore, who was Clinton's vice president, was running as the Democratic candidate. And you could see just by the table at the top that we know that George Bush won the presidency, but when you look, Al Gore actually won the popular vote but lost the election, and this is one of the closest elections in history. And this shows how much the Electoral College does mean. And it came down to the state of Florida, which had a disputed vote, and you could see that when we click on the results and look at Florida and the closeness of the state of Florida with the total number of votes cast, and it all came down to a difference of 537 votes. And so for a state that large to be the determining factor, and if Gore would have won Florida, it would have reversed the result of the election. So it all came down to Florida. And here's where the third party candidates come into play. If you see right here, the Green Party candidate, Ralph Nader, ran as a third party candidate, and people, the 97,000 plus people who voted for Nader, you would typically think would vote Democrat. So if Nader wasn't there, and even obviously even just a couple percent of Nader's total votes go to Gore, the election swings the other way. Okay, now you can make an argument that Pat Buchanan, the reform candidate, typically those votes would have went to George Bush. But let's say that you just transfer all the votes from those couple candidates, and we could even throw in the libertarian votes for Bush, and his 33,000, those 33,000 votes go to Bush, and Nader's 97,000 plus go to Gore, and then the election swings. And so a third-party candidate hasn't won any electoral votes in quite some time, yet they can impact the election. And really, you could say that Ralph Nader's candidacy really cost Al Gore the election in 2000. So you can have a presidential election in which the winner of the popular vote actually doesn't win the election because of the Electoral College. And at the time, there was talk to amend the Constitution to get rid of the Electoral College and just go by the popular vote, but it never took hold. The Constitution remained as it was, and really, you could look at it and say we're going to be stuck with the Electoral College for quite some time, because if the controversy surrounding the 2000 election couldn't or didn't lead to a change to the popular vote, I don't know that it ever will. But so as we said, the one unique American tradition is electing the president through the Electoral College, although all other offices are just based on the popular vote. But it's important that you understand how the president gets elected through that Electoral College.